Moving on to public hearings, consideration of pre-annexation rezone 1601 for the South Yuba City area. This will be presented by Arnaldo Rodriguez, our Development Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor Buckland, members of the City Council. Arnaldo Rodriguez with the Planning and Development Department. The item before you this evening is a request to rezone the South Yuba City area prior to formally beginning the annexation process with LAFCO. In terms of the annexation process and what that entails, the act of an annexation is to bring a territory into a specific area. In this particular case, it would be bringing in property that's currently in the county into the city of Yuba City. The term annexation is mostly associated with bringing property into cities. However, there are a lot of districts that applies to. So in this particular case, it would be rural property into the city. So the item before you tonight, again, is strictly to pre-zone the property to make it consistent with our general plan. And there is a state law that mandates or that requires that prior to any annexation, prior to the city annexing property into a city, the zoning has to be consistent with the adopted general plan. The existing general plan was adopted in 2004. The city's gone through this process before that, prior to 2004, so the city actually went through the formal process, pre-zoned the property. However, the city, as part of the 2004 general plan update, modified some of the planned land uses in that area. So the reason that we're bringing this item back, again, is to simply make it consistent with the existing general plan. So there are no changes to any of the planned land uses or to the sphere of influence. Rather, again, it's just to make it consistent. In terms of the roles of the various agencies involved, the city of Yuba City would be the formal applicant at the county, and we would be applying with LAFCO. LAFCO is the formal agency that makes the determination if the property would eventually come into the city. So again, the city would be acting as the applicant in this case, not necessarily the lead agency as part of the annexation process. In terms of timelines and in terms of where we're at, we're somewhat in the infant stages of this process. Last month, we presented this rezone application to the Planning Commission where they recommended approval. And here we are tonight before the City Council simply to introduce the item. This item it's going to be brought back to the City Council at the April 19th meeting for formal action. And at that time, we'll also be requesting that the Council adopt a resolution to initiate the process with LAFCO. And as you can tell, in the months of April, May, and June, city staff is planning on holding neighborhood meetings with the residents in the area, and then at that point we anticipate having formal LAFCO hearings in July or August towards the end of the summer. In terms of the area itself, it's 625 acres in total, so slightly less than 1 square mile. The area is highlighted in black. Again, it's on the southern central part of our community. We're not proposing any sphere of influence expansions at this time. The area around it is largely developed. The area itself, roughly 2/3 of it is developed, primarily with single-family residential homes. However, there is a relatively large vacant portion which the Siller family owns, which is on the west side of Highway 99, just north of Bogue. So the area itself, again, it's largely developed. It's completely surrounded, minus the area south of Bogue Road. It's annexed into the city, so it is currently part of the city, with the exception of the South Yuba City area. And highlighted on the southern boundary there is the sphere of influence line. So in terms of the planned land uses, this is a page out of the 2004 general plan. Again, we're not proposing any planned land use designations. For the most part, the existing general plan and the zoning that we're proposing largely mirrors what's in the county, sans the Siller property, which is currently planned for business, manufacturing, and some commercial property. In the county, it's currently zoned for residential uses, and just above that, there's another developed portion which the city has planned as low density residential, which is really an R2 zoning, whereas it's currently R1 in the county. However, for the most part, nearly all of the property, especially all the single family homes, would maintain their existing zoning, however, with slightly different regulations, because right now the R1 zone district's in the county. It would also be R1 here in the city, but it would be subject to our regulations. So again, this is a map of the existing county zoning, and I know we really can't see this because the red light doesn't pick up on it, but you can see just on the west side of Highway 99, it's currently R1, whereas in the city we would be proposing it to be light manufacturing with some office, and then at the same time some commercial as well. So in terms of why we're proposing to move forward with the pre-zone annexation at this time, a lot of it simply deals with the area is completely surrounded by the city. The city currently provides services in the area, and so it simply makes for good public policy and then also to be fiscally smart in terms of finite resources. So the Walton area, which is immediately to the west, I believe I have a map right here. So the Walton area, which is to the west of the subject area, it's currently in the city limits. However, law enforcement services are provided by the county sheriff and state highway patrol. We, in our master tax sharing agreement with the county, so between the city of Yuba and Cedar County, there's an agreement in place that states that prior to this area being annexed or being served by city police, 82% of the area has to be incorporated into the city. So even though that part's currently in the city, it's served by the county. Upon annexation of the area that we're discussing tonight, the 625 acres, will have met the 82% minimum requirement. And at that point, the city police department can actually serve the entire area, which we generally refer to as Beat 6. And that's the future beat. Again, it's a highlighted area, and it also includes the Walton area immediately to the west. In terms of changes, and this usually comes up for lifestyle items, so the city, we would be providing law enforcement. We would also be providing code enforcement and planning services, as well as building inspection. So if someone did want to build a brand new building, they would be coming to the city rather than the county. However, with that being said, the city currently provides fire services for the area, even though it's in the county, and we provide water for a good portion of the area. Wastewater is primarily served currently by private septic systems. We're not proposing any changes to that whatsoever. In terms of refuse collection, that's currently provided by Recology. There would be no changes to that. The schools, there are no changes to that because it's within Yuba City Unified. Ambulance service, there are no changes. And public transit, there would be no changes. And just to reiterate, or to really emphasize, there would be no proposed changes in terms of property taxes. The only thing that would change is in terms of who receives those dollars, not necessarily the amount collected. So again, tonight's proposal, we are proposing absolutely no changes to the adopted general plan. And we're simply proposing to rezone the property to make it consistent with our general plan in terms of zoning and the planned land use designation. And there are no affiliated projects with this, so there are no use permits. There's absolutely no new development in terms of this process. If anyone were to come in after the fact, they would simply have to comply with our adopted regulations here at the city in terms of property development standards, setbacks, building heights, parking regulations. So this evening, we are recommending the following actions. We are recommending that we introduce the ordinance to rezone the 625 acres consistent with the adopted general plan. And we're also proposing we're requesting that the council waive the first reading of the ordinance. And we're also requesting that the council adopt the environmental assessment prepared for this project, which is attached to the staff report. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for the information. Any questions of Mr. Rodriguez before I open this to the public? Okay. So we'll open this for our public hearing. Public comment will be heard at this time. I do have two speaker cards. And the first one, Mr. Bob Renton.
Thank you. My name is Bob Renton. I have interest in property in the South Central area. I guess we're key holders. Really, the city council should kill this annexation right now. to save you the cost and the embarrassment of another defeat like you had in '04. We are fully prepared to fight again, and I am retired and I can devote full time to this fight. I still have all the documentation, notes, and electronic files on my computer from the last fight. I guess I'm asking, how many bloody noses do you folks really need to understand that we will not be annexed? How much money are you willing to throw down a rat hole on this annexation fight? It cost you a special election last time, and you had a big bill from LAFCO for their part of your failure. Are you really ready to explain to your Yuba City residents and taxpayers why you spent all this money on another failed attempt? Also, we have no intention of supporting a bloated city pension system with its unfunded liabilities. Sutter County taxpayers are already loaded down with well over $120 million in unfunded liabilities. And why in the world would we want to take on city liabilities as well? We have no interest in paying city fees for owning a burglar alarm, or paying for a business license, or even a city burn permit. So I suggest drop this right now and save yourself a lot of headaches. Anybody here that's opposing this annexation, please raise your hand. Many of these are my neighbors, and they're true fighters, and I thank all of them for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another speaker card. It'd be Mr. Rick Tice.
Members of the council, it's an old cliche, but sometimes people do the good cop, the bad cop routine. I think the good cop tonight. I have a question. So with this things going through, being voted on tonight, does that mean that the city intends to annex this area? Is that the pleasure of the council, pretty much?
Mr. Dice, you can go ahead and make your comments. We will not answer any of your any of your questions from that position tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, in reading the article on Wednesday, and it seemed to indicate that the city was definitely interested in annexing this area. I can understand the interest in, I guess it was the urgency in giving people in the Walton area police protection. Although after 16 years, I don't know if you can consider that to be urgent or not. If you do make a request for annexation, is it going to be the city making the request, or is there going to be a committee or a proponent system as in 2000 with Walton?
As I said,
We're not going to answer questions?
we're not going to sit here and answer your
All right.
questions. Mr. Rodriguez made a presentation on
Okay.
who the applicant was.
Okay. Well, my concern is this. I know that there was an 82% threshold. My question is, why was there an 82% threshold? It would seem to me that there would have been a plan B. It seems like what happened was it seemed like everybody thought that there wasn't going to be any opposition, that Walton would fall, Holly would fall, and then we would fall. What happened was the citizens in the 315 reorganization, annexation, decided that they were perfectly happy in the county. We didn't make any major aspersions against the city. They just simply decided we were happier in the county. A lot of people moved to that area because they wanted to be in the county. And so I hear comments about how people were afraid. We didn't propose it. We didn't use any scare tactics. Hopefully, if this process unfolds, it'll be a good opportunity for a good dialogue, and people will learn more about the city and the county. So thank you for your time. Oh, I would echo what Bob said. I don't think this annexation has a snowball's chance in hell, but that's just my opinion.
Your language. Thank you very much, Mr. Dice. Any further comments? If any foul language is used to include any word that would represent the last words used, I would ask you to use those words outside or use them in person with me. But it is not in a public forum in which it goes into homes via our media system here. Thank you very much, Mr. Dice. We'll accept that apology. Any other members from the public wish to speak to it? I know that there's more in opposition, and certainly we don't have to have the speaker card. You have 3 minutes to give us your input. We certainly want to have everyone involved in the process. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council.
To the mayor, first of all, thank you guys for being here tonight, because that means a lot. Obviously, you're here, you're expressing your views. You agree or you don't agree, but at least you've taken the time out of your busy schedules to tell us that you don't agree with this process. And I think that's exactly what this is. This is a process, beginning of a process of not only putting this step forward, and this is the first step of making sure there's public meetings to explain the pros, the cons, hear from the neighbors. And then it does go out to the residents of the city that's affected. You get to vote. If you would like to have this part annexed in the city, say yes. If you don't, then you say no to it. It's not something that the city's grabbing or saying this has got to go into this. And I think for myself, being on the council on year number 8, we've talked about this within the last 2 to 3 years, that making this a priority to making sure that the police can service the areas that are currently in the city, but we currently have county services. And why that was at an 82%, that was done way prior to before our times. So I think this is, from my standpoint of view, this is something, the beginning of the first step that I definitely support, because I want the voters to vote, not myself. You get the opportunity to say, yes, you want to be annexed, or no, you don't want to be annexed in the city. I mean, that's what this democratic society is all about. You get to vote. So, I mean, it's nice for you, Mr. Benton, to get up and talk about bloody noses and stuff. And that's not what this is about. For me, it's something that I feel we want to give the opportunity to voters. So it's a process, and it's a long process. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other comments? The only other comment that I would make is yeah, there's a past. Certainly there's been discussion in the past. How was 82%, a percentile of 82% achieved or even discussed in the past? Probably through negotiations of public officials in which they felt that during the boom that would be achieved in a very short period of time. 16 years is far too long for a whole entire section, about 20% of the residents of Yuba City, to not have adequate, what I would call adequate municipal policing. And that means that the staffing levels are higher than what the county sheriff's department can do. The county provides excellent police service as a sheriff's department. They have a large geographical area that they are tied to. It's not a smaller geographical area as municipalities normally function within. So that's a huge concern from the public safety side. Certainly, I echo exactly the sentiment of Councilmember Gill. The residents get to decide this. We're not deciding it. We're moving this process to the public so they can decide whether or not they wish you, those that are opposed, those that are for it, to come in. I understand the rural lifestyle. I live in the city. 2 houses away to the north of me, or my neighbors live in the county. We have exactly the same lifestyle. We pay exactly the same in taxes, just theirs goes to the county and mine goes over to the city. We walk on the same sidewalks. We share the same sewer system. We have everything in common. And none of that changes through this process. Burn permits? I'm not even going to get into air quality issues from here. But there's other ways of getting rid of items than lighting off a garbage can in your backyard and burning what should be going to waste disposal. And quite frankly, unless it's an ag burn anymore, it's illegal to do it. So, we look at a number of those type of things. It's quality of life. Is it going to change your quality of life? Absolutely not. With the exception of, you're going to have code enforcement. You're going to have a consistent manner of dealing with code issues that can degrade a neighborhood. People growing marijuana in the backyard. Yuba City has one ordinance, and Sutter County has another. And until those two marry up and are similar, the chief complaint I get from county residents is somebody's growing pot behind me and it stinks. And I don't get those complaints any longer in Yuba City because our ordinance requires it be filtered and indoors. As much as we can all oppose those type of grows, it happens. They're going to grow it because they have some rights in California to do just that, but they need to do it within the confines of the law. So I think that giving this to the residents to choose, the residents of that area, we don't like to, and Bob, seriously, we don't like to call that area the keyhole. It's not, some part that's been long forgotten. This is an area of Yuba City that simply is adjacent to the highway and runs all the way into Franklin Road and all the way down to Bogue Road. And again, at the borders of that, one house will be county, one will be city. And cleaning that up and making straight lines out of it certainly allows for a lot better process when it comes to police service and responses into those areas. So with that, I give it back to the council for action.
Through the mayor.
Go ahead.
I'll make a couple quick comments. In the past, when the annexation was attempted, there was a lot of misinformation that was spread around, and our goal this time is one, as has been mentioned, is to let the citizens make that choice, but give them good information. Quite honestly, the city did not give good information the last time around, and so this time part of this process will be to make information available to those residents so they can make an informed choice. And at the end of the day, it is their choice whether they choose to do this or not, but at least they will have good information to make those choices on. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to move this item.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you to those that spoke and certainly have shown up either for or against this item.